The first time I met Commander Ryla Vorn, she nearly killed me. Not because she hated humans, though she probably did back then, but because she had every reason to. The Threxian Dominion and humanity had spent decades tearing each other apart across the Orion Arm. And then, suddenly, peace came. A fragile, paper-thin treaty signed after both sides had bled themselves dry. I was one of the few humans assigned to the Joint Peace Garrison aboard Station Helvian, a neutral Threxian outpost orbiting the shattered moon of Dareth. My job? Liaison officer, translator, expendable human mascot, take your pick. Her job? Commanding officer of the entire station. Ryla Vorn, decorated war hero, the Iron Star of Threxia. I'd read her file. Ruthless in battle, unflinching in command, a woman who'd watched her own mate die during a siege led by human forces. When she walked into the conference chamber for our first meeting, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Her presence wasn't just intimidating, it was gravitational. Tall, silver-skinned, with eyes that shimmered faintly like dying embers, she wore her ceremonial armor like a second skin. She didn't sit. She didn't greet me. She simply stared and said, "You're smaller than I expected." I grinned awkwardly. "You're taller than my nightmare suggested." There was a pause. Then, just barely, her lip curved upward. The smallest hint of amusement. That was the first time Commander Ryla didn't kill me. Middle. A commander's silence. Over the next several months, we worked together on reconstruction efforts, rebuilding damaged colonies, coordinating shipments, and mediating arguments between humans and Threxians who'd rather finish the war than live in peace. The strange part? I started looking forward to our shifts. Ryla was efficient to the point of obsession. Every word she spoke was precise, clipped, almost sterile. But when she gave orders, there was a weight behind them. A grief she carried like a blade. Sometimes, late at night, I'd see her standing alone in the observation deck, staring at the debris field orbiting Dareth. That was where her mate had died. The human fleet had bombed the Threxian outposts there into dust. She never said his name, never mentioned him, but I saw her touch the glass sometimes, like she could still feel him on the other side. One night, after another 18-hour shift, I passed by her quarters. The lights inside flickered, and I heard something that made me stop. She was humming. It was quiet, mournful, an old Threxian melody I recognized from wartime broadcasts. A lament for fallen soldiers. Before I could move away, her voice came through the intercom. "Lieutenant Cole," she said softly, "you've been standing outside my door for 40 seconds. I froze. Ma'am, I was just checking on the power fluctuations." "Liar," she replied, opening the door. "Come in." Inside, her quarters were dark, lit only by a faint amber glow from a small holographic sculpture, two intertwining ribbons of light. Ryla was seated at her desk, armor removed, dressed in simple Threxian silks. It was the first time I'd seen her without the mask of command. "You're curious," she said. "Humans always are." "Occupational hazard," I said, trying to smile. She studied me for a long moment. Then, quietly, "You remind me of him." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. That night, for reasons I still can't explain, she asked me to stay. Not romantically, not even intimately, just be there. We sat in silence while she stared out the viewport. The hum of the station filled the air like a heartbeat. When I stood to leave hours later, she said softly, "Stay until the dawn cycle." I stayed. The war that wouldn't die. Peace never lasts. Not out here. A rogue Threxian faction calling themselves the Red Choir started attacking neutral colonies, blaming humans for Threxia's collapse. When a relief convoy went missing near Dareth, I was ordered to accompany Ryla to investigate. The moment we arrived, The ambush hit. Half our escort disintegrated under plasma fire. Ryla's ship took a direct hit to the bridge. I remember the explosion, the deafening roar, and Ryla dragging me to cover as atmosphere vented into space. When I woke, the ship was half ruined, orbiting dangerously close to Daratha's gravity well. Ryla was at the controls, bleeding from a gash along her arm, trying to stabilize us. "We've lost propulsion," she said. "The choir disabled the core." "Then we abandoned ship," I said. "Get to the escape pods." "There are no pods," she replied flatly. "We converted them into medical units weeks ago." "Then what?" She turned to me, eyes fierce. "We survive. That's an order." We spent hours in the wreckage, rerouting power through manual conduits, sealing bulkheads, and praying the hull would hold. Every time I faltered, she'd bark orders, curse in Threxian, or shove me back on my feet. But underneath that steel, I could see it, the fear. Not for herself. For me. When the reactor finally overloaded, we launched the damaged auxiliary shuttle, barely escaping as the cruiser tore itself apart behind us. We landed hard on Daratha's surface, the landscape a wasteland of metallic shards and burned stone. For the first time, we were truly alone. Middle. Nights on the dead world. The shuttle's communications were fried. No rescue. No supplies beyond ration bars and emergency suits. We built a camp among the ruins of an old Threxian temple, half buried, covered in dust and frost. Ryla tended to the beacon, working tirelessly, barely sleeping. I kept the fire running, salvaging what I could. On the second night, she collapsed. Her wound had become infected. "Let me help," I said, reaching for her. "I can manage," she hissed, pulling away. "You're delirious, Commander." Her voice softened. "Don't call me Commander. Not here." I cleaned and sealed the wound, my hands trembling. Her blood glowed faintly in the dark, luminescent blue, pulsing like starlight. When she woke, she whispered, "You shouldn't care so much." "Too late," I said. For a moment, she smiled. Then she turned her face away and whispered, "You'll make me remember what I've lost." Days turned into weeks. The beacon refused to send a signal. We were trapped. Every night, we sat beside the fire, speaking less like officer and subordinate and more like two survivors bound by shared loneliness. She told me about her mate, Kale, about the war, about how she'd begged her superiors to surrender before the orbital bombardment destroyed everything. "I believed hate was strength," she said quietly. "But hate is only delay. It postpones grief." I didn't answer. I just watched the flickering light dance across her silver skin. And then, one night, as the cold wind howled through the ruins, she asked, "Why do you stay?" I shrugged. "Because you asked me to." She looked at me for a long time, then leaned forward until our foreheads touched. Threxians didn't kiss. Their form of intimacy was synchronization. Shared proximity of thought and feeling through microchemical exchange. For the first time, I felt what she felt, grief, guilt, and something else she'd never dared name. "Ryla," I whispered.
"Don't," she said.
"Not yet." The rescue that broke US. After 47 days on Darath, a distress signal finally broke through. A coalition rescue ship arrived, human-led, Threxian-assisted. When they saw us together, the officers exchanged looks that said more than words could. Ryla returned to her command duties immediately, cold and distant again. I was debriefed, interrogated, and nearly reassigned for compromised loyalties. Weeks passed without a word from her. The nights were empty again. Then, one evening, I received a message. Observation deck. 0300 hours. She was waiting there, just as before, standing before the stars. Commander. Ryla, she corrected softly. She turned, eyes shimmering with something I couldn't define. They're transferring me. High Command doesn't trust the peace. They're mobilizing fleets again. My stomach dropped. You're leaving? I have no choice. Then let me come with you. She shook her head. You're human. They'll never allow it. I stepped closer. You said you didn't believe in hate anymore. Her voice broke. I don't, but the universe still does. For a moment, silence hung between us. Heavy, final. Then she reached out and touched my face. Her hand was warm, trembling. Every night, after the battles, I used to wait for him to come back, she said. Now, every night, I wait for you. I didn't realize I was crying until she brushed the tears away. She whispered, Don't forget me, Cole. And just like that, she was gone. Ending. The war returns. The war returned. It always does. 5 years later, the coalition treaty shattered. Skirmishes ignited across the neutral zones. I'd left the service by then, working as a civilian engineer, trying to pretend the peace had meant something. Then the broadcast came, footage from the Battle of Threx Prime. A Threxian fleet had intercepted human forces near the capital. Casualties were immense. At the center of it all, Commander Ryla Vorn. Reports said she had defied direct orders to retreat, that she'd led a last stand to protect both human and Threxian civilians trapped on the surface. Her ship was destroyed in orbit. No survivors. For 3 nights, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing under the stars, whispering, I wait for you. Epilogue. The light that waits. A year later, I visited Dareth again. The ruins were still there, half buried in ash. I walked to the place where we'd once built our fire and found something I couldn't explain, a faint glow rising from the cracked stone. A Threxian data crystal, buried deep in the soil. When I activated it, her voice filled the air. Cole, if you're hearing this, then I am gone. A pause. Then softer. But you must know, I did not die for war. I died for peace. For the world we once dreamed of, in the firelight. Her voice trembled. You asked why I wanted you to stay. The truth is simple. You reminded me that love doesn't belong to one species. It belongs to life. Static filled the final seconds then. I'll wait again. Somewhere beyond the stars. Until the dawn's cycle stay. The crystal dimmed, and the sky above Dareth broke into light, an aurora of pale gold and blue, just as it had the night she asked me to stay. I stood there until the sun rose, whispering the only words that ever mattered. I stayed, Ryla.